A black chef named Noah was unfairly fired without reason by the new chef from the restaurant he had worked at for years. 6 months later, Noah returned to the restaurant, and something amazing happened that left everyone speechless. Before we get into the story, comment below where you are watching from, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Noah Hayes, a talented and passionate black chef, stood at the shiny stainless steel counter, his black hands moving expertly as he chopped fresh herbs. The kitchen of El Grand Epicurean was bustling with activity around him, but Noah was in his element, completely focused on the task at hand. The scent of simmering sauces and grilling meats filled the air, making Noah's mouth water. He smiled to himself, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. This was where he belonged. Chef Noah Sophie, one of the younger chefs, called out, "The special tonight is amazing, you're overdoing it again." Noah looked up, his warm brown eyes crinkling at the corners. "Thank you, Sophie, but remember it's a team effort. We all work together to make it happen." As he spoke, Noah's mind seemed to wander to his greatest dream, owning his own restaurant. He imagined a warm, welcoming space filled with the laughter of happy diners enjoying dishes made from his heart. The thought filled his chest with hope and determination. Just then, the kitchen door opened and Madame Beaumont, a regular, poked her head in. Her face lit up when she saw Noah. "Here you are, the magician of flavors," she exclaimed happily. "My dear Noah, your lobster bisque is amazing. I had to come back to tell you this." Noah felt his cheeks flush at the compliment. "Thank you, Madame Beaumont. I'm glad you like it." As Madame Beaumont spoke to him, Noah couldn't help but feel proud. This was why he loved cooking, the joy it brought to people, the way it touched their hearts through taste. When she left, Noah returned to his work, his mind racing with new ideas for dishes. He picked up a ripe tomato, felt its weight in his hands, and began to slice it carefully. One day he thought to himself, "I'll serve food like this in my own restaurant." The atmosphere in the El Grand Epicurean kitchen changed dramatically with the arrival of Mr. Huxley, the new chef and co-owner. His polished shoes clicked loudly on the tiled floor as he entered, his white chef's coat a stark contrast to his cool demeanor. Noah stood up straight, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. He prepared his signature dish, hoping to impress his new boss. "Mr. Huxley," Noah said, holding out his hand, "I'm Noah Hayes. Nice to meet you." Mr. Huxley's eyes swept over Noah, his gaze lingering on Noah's dark skin before focusing on the plate of food in front of him. He ignored Noah's outstretched hand. "What is this?" Mr. Huxley asked, his tone short and dismissive. Noah swallowed, trying to keep a smile on his face. "This is my signature dish, sir. A fusion of traditional French cuisine with Caribbean flavors. I thought you might like a taste." Mr. Huxley's lips twitched slightly. "I see. Well then, Mr. Hayes, I'm not here to try experimental dishes. El Grand Epicurean is renowned for its classic French cuisine, and it will stay that way." The words hit Noah like a punch to the gut. He watched as Mr. Huxley turned away without tasting the food, then began telling the rest of the kitchen staff about his plans for the restaurant. Noah stood there, the plate of food he had carefully prepared slowly cooling. The excitement he had felt just minutes before slowly faded, replaced by a sinking feeling in his stomach. He couldn't help but wonder if Mr. Huxley's rejection had something to do with more than the food. With Mr. Huxley's speech about tradition and excellence, Noah quietly put away his untouched dish. He tried to focus on Mr. Huxley's words, but his mind kept wandering to the new chef's cold gaze. For the first time since starting work at El Grand Epicurean, Noah felt like he no longer belonged in the kitchen he had come to love. In the days after Mr. Huxley's arrival, the kitchen at El Grand Epicurean began to change. At first it was only small changes, but Noah couldn't help but notice the change in his work schedule. He found himself regularly scheduled for the lunch shift instead of the bustling dinner shift he was used to. One afternoon, as Noah was preparing for the lunch rush, he overheard Mr. Huxley's conversation with another chef. "We need to focus on traditional flavors," Mr. Huxley said. "No more of these ridiculous fusions." Noah's heart sank, but he kept his head down and continued working. He tried to make suggestions during the menu planning process, but Mr. Huxley would either interrupt him or simply ignore his ideas. "Noah, Sarah, one of the cooks, said as they cleaned up after their shift, have you noticed how Mr. Huxley has been treating you lately?" Noah paused, a lump forming in his throat. "It's probably nothing," he said, forcing a smile. "He's just getting used to it." Sarah frowned. "That's not quite right. You're one of our best cooks." "Thanks, Sarah," Noah replied, touched by her concern. "But don't worry about me. I'm sure everything will be fine." As the weeks went on, more of Noah's co-workers expressed concern. They noticed how Mr. Huxley ignored Noah's opinions and pushed him away from the most important dishes. Despite his growing anxiety, Noah tried to stay positive. He poured himself into his work, making each dish with care and passion. even if it was just a simple lunch salad. My work will speak for itself, Noah tells himself every morning as he ties his apron. I just have to keep doing my best. But as he watched Mr. Huxley praise other chefs for their less creative dishes, Noah couldn't help but wonder how long he could maintain this optimism. It was dinner time at El Grand Epicurean, the kitchen bustling with chefs and kitchen staff working in perfect harmony. Noah stood at his post, carefully garnishing his signature dish, a modern take on coq au vin. As he placed the final touches on his plate, Mr. Huxley approached, his eyes narrowing as he inspected Noah's work. "What is this?" Mr. Huxley demanded, his sharp voice cutting through the noise in the kitchen. Noah stood up straight, his voice full of pride. "This is my version of coq au vin. The customers love it." Mr. Huxley's face twisted in disdain. "This is not coq au vin. This is an insult." The kitchen fell silent. All eyes turned to Noah and Mr. Huxley. "But Sir," Noah began, his voice calm despite the pain in his heart, "I've been making this dish for years, and it's one of our most popular dishes." "I don't care how popular it is, Mr. Huxley interrupted, his voice rising. "This is not what we serve at El Grand Epicurean. This is a proper French restaurant, not some trendy fusion cafe." Noah felt his face heat up as Mr. Huxley continued to berate him in front of the entire kitchen staff. He noticed the pitying looks from his co-workers, the shocked expressions from the new employees. As Mr. Huxley's rant continued, Noah began to see beyond the words. He noticed how Mr. Huxley never looked him in the eye, how his expressions seemed exaggerated, as if he were acting. But for whom? Suddenly the truth hit Noah like a punch in the gut. This wasn't just about the food. Mr. Huxley's actions, his constant rejection of Noah's ideas, the way he gradually pushed Noah aside, all pointed to something deeper, something Noah had hoped he wouldn't have to face in the kitchen he had once called home. As Mr. Huxley stormed off, leaving Noah standing alone with what he called an insult, Noah felt a wave of emotions wash over him: anger, hurt, and disappointment all mixed together in his chest. But underneath it all, a fire of determination began to burn. He wouldn't let Mr. Huxley's prejudices define him or his cooking. Noah returned home that night, his shoulders heaving and his eyes filled with worry. As he walked through the door, the warm aroma of Carenza's homemade lasagna filled the air, but even his favorite dish couldn't lift his spirits. Carenza emerged from the kitchen, her warm smile fading as she saw the gloom on her husband's face. "Noah, what's wrong, honey?" Carenza asked worriedly. Noah sat down in a chair at the dining table, his hand rubbing over his face. "It's Mr. Huxley," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Things at the restaurant are getting worse." Carenza sat next to him, taking his hand in hers. "Tell me everything," she urged gently. With a deep sigh, Noah recounted the evening's events. Mr. Huxley's public humiliation, the shocked faces of his co-workers, and the growing tension in the kitchen. As he spoke, his voice shook with a mixture of anger and hurt. I think it's because I'm black," Noah finally confessed, his eyes meeting hers. "I was the only black cook in that kitchen, and Mr. Huxley, he treated me differently. Like he was looking for any reason to push me out of there." Carenza's hand tightened on his, her eyes shining with sympathy and fierce protection. "Oh, Noah," she said softly, "I'm so sorry you had to go through this. But listen," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "You're incredibly talented, your cooking is amazing, and you have every right to be in that kitchen." Noah nodded, feeling the power of his wife's words. "I know, but sometimes I wonder if it's worth fighting for." "It is," Carenza insisted. "You've worked hard to get where you are today. Don't let Mr. Huxley's prejudices take that away." She took his face in her hands, her eyes locked on his. "You're strong, Noah Hayes. Not only are you a great chef, you're a good man with a beautiful heart. That's worth more than any title or fancy restaurant." A small smile tugged at Noah's lips. "What would I do without you?" he whispered. Carenza leaned down and placed a soft kiss on his forehead. "You'll never have to find out. We're always together, remember? Now let's eat some lasagna and find a way to show Mr. Huxley how wrong he was." As they sat down at the dinner table, Noah felt a new sense of determination. With Carenza by his side, he knew he could face any challenge at El Grand Epicurean. As the days passed, Mr. Huxley's treatment of Noah became more and more apparent. The tension in the El Grand Epicurean kitchen was as thick as an overcooked sauce, stifling and uncomfortable. One morning, Noah arrived at work to find the other chefs gathered around Mr. Huxley, discussing the menu for the coming week. As Noah approached, the conversation abruptly stopped. Mr. Huxley's cold eyes glanced at Noah before he turned back to the chefs. "As I was saying," Mr. Huxley continued, deliberately ignoring Noah, "we're presenting a new tasting menu next week. I've assigned everyone a course." Noah cleared his throat. "Excuse me, Mr. Huxley, what would you like me to prepare?" Mr. Huxley's lips twitched slightly. "Oh, Noah, I didn't see you there. You can continue with your usual routine. We won't need your creative ideas for this menu." The words hit Noah like salt in a wound. He looked around at his colleagues, hoping to find a friendly face or a sign of support. Instead, he was met with averted glances and awkwardness. As the days went on, Noah felt more and more isolated. Important meetings about menu changes or VIP receptions always seemed to happen when he wasn't there. His suggestions were dismissed without consideration, his expertise ignored. What was more painful was the growing distance between Noah and his colleagues, whom he had once considered friends. Now they barely dared to look him in the eye, and conversations would stop when he entered the break room, only to resume in whispers when he left. One afternoon, Noah overheard two of his co-workers whispering in the refrigerator. "I feel sorry for Noah," one said, "but what can we do? If we speak up for him, we could be the next ones Mr. Huxley fires." "I know," the other replied, sighing heavily. "That's not right, but I can't risk losing this job. I have a family to take care of." Noah walked away quietly, his heart heavy. He understood their fears, but the realization that he was now fighting alone made him feel like he was wearing a lead vest. The night of the big event had arrived, and the El Gran Epicurean restaurant was filled with excitement. The restaurant was packed with the city's elite, including food critics, celebrities, and influential business leaders. This should have been the perfect opportunity for Noah to showcase his culinary talents, but Mr. Huxley had other plans. As the kitchen staff gathered for a pre-service meeting, Mr. Huxley assigned duties. "Pierre, you'll be in charge of the appetizers. Sarah, the main courses are your responsibility." And Noah, Mr. Huxley paused, his eyes gleaming with barely concealed contempt. "You'll be on dish duty and preparing ingredients tonight." Noah felt like he'd been slapped in the face. Dish duty on one of the most important nights of the year. He opened his mouth to protest, but Mr. Huxley had already moved on to discussing the evening specials, many of which Noah had developed himself. With a heavy heart, Noah took his place at the sink. As he scrubbed pots and pans, he could hear the excited chatter of the diners and the clink of cutlery. The aroma of exquisite dishes, his own dishes, permeated the kitchen, a bitter reminder of what he was missing. Throughout the evening, Noah watches as Mr. Huxley parades through the dining room, receiving compliments for the dishes Noah has created. Seared scallops with truffle foam. "Oh yes, that's my personal creation," Mr. Huxley brags to a food critic, conveniently forgetting that it was Noah who recommended the dish. Despite the unfair treatment, Noah continued his work diligently. He made sure every pot was spotless, every vegetable was cut to perfection. Even in this menial role, he was determined to maintain his dignity and professionalism. As the night wore on, Noah's frustration grew, but so did his determination. He might have been pushed to the back burner for the time being, but he knew his worth. He refused to let Mr. Huxley's actions diminish his passion for cooking or his dream of someday owning his own restaurant. The next day, Noah arrived at the restaurant early, his heart heavy but his determination strong. He knew he couldn't let Mr. Huxley's unfair treatment continue. As the kitchen staff busily prepared for the day, Noah took a deep breath and walked towards Mr. Huxley. "Hey, Mr. Huxley, may I speak to you for a moment?" Noah asked, his voice steady despite the anxiety rising inside him. Mr. Huxley turned, eyebrows raised in surprise. "What is it, Noah?" "As you can see, we are very busy." Noah insisted. "I think this is very important and needs to be discussed immediately, sir." The kitchen suddenly fell silent, the staff sensing the tension in the air. All eyes were on Noah and Mr. Huxley. "Very well," Mr. Huxley said, his voice short. "Speak. What do you have to say?" Noah took a deep breath. "Mr. Huxley, I have noticed a pattern in how I am being treated here. I believe I am facing discrimination because of my race." A collective intake of breath echoed in the kitchen. Mr. Huxley's face hardened. His eyes narrowed. "This is a very serious accusation, Noah. What makes you think that?" "You continually belittle my work, sir," Noah explained, his voice growing stronger. "You push me into less important tasks, ignore my opinions, and even take credit for my cooking. I can't help but notice that I'm the only black chef here and the only one who receives this treatment." The kitchen staff exchanged uneasy looks, some nodding in agreement, while others shied away, ashamed that they had not spoken up sooner. Mr. Huxley's face twisted in anger. "How dare you say that? I do nothing but uphold the high standards of this restaurant. If you can't handle pressure, then you're probably not suited for this kitchen." Noah stood tall, unmoved by Mr. Huxley's outburst. "I can handle pressure, sir. What I can't handle is unfair treatment. I'm a skilled chef and I deserve the same respect and opportunity as everyone else here." The tension in the kitchen was palpable. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see how this confrontation would play out. Mr. Huxley's face turned a deeper shade of red as he stared at Noah. The kitchen staff fell silent, no one daring to speak, the air thick with tension. "Enough," Mr. Huxley roared, his voice echoing off the stainless steel surfaces. "I will not stand here and be accused of discrimination in my own kitchen." Noah remained steadfast, his gaze locked with Mr. Huxley. "Sir, I am only asking for fair treatment." "Fair treatment?" Mr. Huxley sneered. "I will show you what fair treatment is. You are fired. Pack your things and leave my kitchen immediately." A sigh rippled through the kitchen. Noah felt as if he had been punched in the gut, the shock of his sudden dismissal rendering him momentarily speechless. "You can't do that," one of the SAS chefs whispered, but Mr. Huxley silenced him with a sharp look. Noah took a deep breath, trying to fight back the tears that threatened to spill over. He looked around at his co-workers, some avoiding his gaze while others looked at him with sympathy. "Very good," Noah said, his voice barely a whisper. He slowly took off his apron and placed it on the counter with what dignity he had left. He walked to the cupboard to get his personal belongings. The kitchen remained eerily silent as Noah packed up. He could feel everyone's eyes on him as he turned to leave. He caught sight of the dish he had left unfinished earlier, a testament to his passion and skill, now left behind. With one last look at what had been his second home for years, Noah walked out of the kitchen, the heavy door closing behind him with a final thud. As he stepped out into the cold morning air, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. His career at El Grand Epicurean was over. The job he had poured his heart and soul into had vanished in an instant. Thoughts flooded his mind as he walked to his car. How would he provide for Karenza and the kids? What would he tell them? Where would he go from here? Noah stood outside another restaurant, his shoulders heaving with defeat. The "not hiring" sign in the window taunted him, a stark reminder of the countless rejections of the past few weeks. He sighed heavily, clutching his chef's resume in his hand. "This can't be happening," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the noise of the street. As Noah walked home, his mind was a jumble of worry. The bills were piling up and Karenza had been supportive, but he could see the worry in her eyes. He needed to find a job, and fast. The next morning, Noah stood outside the small diner on the corner where they lived, the faint hiring sign in the window seeming to beckon him. With a heavy heart, he pushed the door open. "You're more than qualified for the job," the owner, a nice woman named Betty, said after looking over his resume. "But if you want it, it's yours." Noah swallowed his pride and nodded. "I'll take it, thanks." The next week, Noah found himself flipping burgers and making simple sandwiches. It was a far cry from the gourmet food he was used to creating, but he threw himself into the work with determination. "The order's ready," he called out, sliding a plate of eggs and bacon across the counter. The customer, an acquaintance named Joe, took a bite and smiled. "These are the best eggs I've had here in years," Joe said, giving him a thumbs up. Despite the compliment, Noah felt a pang in his heart. He missed the creativity and challenge of fine dining. During breaks, he scribbled recipe ideas in a small notebook, determined to keep his cooking skills sharp. One quiet afternoon, Betty found Noah experimenting with the restaurant's limited ingredients, creating a unique sauce for a special roast. "It smells so good," she said, her eyes widening in surprise. Noah smiled shyly. "Just experimenting," he said as he stirred the sauce. Noah felt a familiar spark of passion ignite within him. Even though he was working in a small restaurant, his love of cooking had not died. He was determined to find his way back to the world of fine dining, no matter how long it took. Noah cleaned the counter in the restaurant, his mind lost in thoughts about his next shift. The bell on the door rang and he looked up to see a middle-aged woman enter, her eyes scanning the room. "Can I help you?" Noah asked politely. The woman's face lit up. "Are you Noah Hayes?" Noah nodded, surprised. "Yes, I am. I'm Sarah from the Oakwood Community Center," she said, extending her hand. "I've heard wonderful things about your cooking skills." Noah shook her hand, his eyes curious and wary. "Thank you. How can I help you?" Sarah smiled warmly. "We're holding a charity cook-off next month to raise money for our after-school programs. We'd love to have you participate." Noah's heart skipped a beat at the mention of a cook-off, but doubt quickly settled in. "I appreciate the invitation, but I'm not sure I'm the right person for this." "Don't say that," Sarah insisted. "Your reputation precedes you. Your presence would really draw attention to our cause." Noah hesitated, his mind a jumble of emotions. "Can I think about it?" "Of course," Sarah replied, handing him a flyer. "I'm Sarah from the Oakwood Community Center," she said, extending her hand. "I've heard wonderful things about your cooking skills." Noah shook her hand, his eyes curious and wary. "Thank you. How can I help you?" Sarah smiled warmly. "We're holding a charity cook-off next month to raise money for our after-school programs. We'd love to have you participate." Noah's heart skipped a beat at the mention of a cook-off, but doubt quickly settled in. I appreciate the invitation, but I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. Don't say that, Sarah insisted. Your reputation precedes you. Your presence would really draw attention to our cause. Noah hesitated, his mind a jumble of emotions. Can I think about it? Of course, Sarah replied, handing him a flyer. Please think about it. We would be honored if you could participate. That evening, Noah sat at the kitchen table, staring at the flyer. His wife, Karenza, noticed his distraction and sat down next to him. What's wrong, honey? She asked gently. Noah sighed and explained the invitation. I don't know if I should do it. What if I'm not as good as I used to be? Karenza took his hand, her eyes filled with love and encouragement. Noah, your talent isn't gone just because you're working at a small restaurant. This could be a great opportunity. But what if it doesn't work out? Noah worried. There are no ifs, Karenza interrupted. You're a great chef, and this is a chance to remind everyone, including yourself, of that. Noah felt a small smile tug at his lips. You really think I should do this? Absolutely, Karenza assured. And I'll be there cheering you on every step of the way. The next day, Noah's friend and former co-worker Tom stopped by the diner for lunch. When Noah told him about the cooking competition, Tom's eyes lit up. You have to enter, Tom said enthusiastically. Show everyone what they've been missing. Noah felt a familiar surge of excitement rise in his chest. The thought of creating something special, sharing his passion with others, was becoming more and more appealing. You know, Noah said, his voice filled with new determination, I think I'll enter. Noah stood in his small kitchen at home, surrounded by an array of ingredients. The counters were filled with spices, fresh vegetables, and various tools. He took a deep breath, taking in the familiar scent that always brought him comfort. As he began chopping vegetables, Noah felt a spark of excitement that he hadn't felt in months. The steady sound of the knife hitting the cutting board was like music to his ears. Noah hummed softly, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Noah's mind wandered to his grandmother's cooking. He remembered the rich, savory flavors of gumbo and how she had lovingly taught him the secret techniques. Inspired, Noah decided to create a dish that honored his roots while adding his own modern twist. Time passed quickly as Noah experimented with different flavor combinations. He tasted, adjusted, and perfected his creation. The kitchen was filled with aromas that made Karenza curiously peek in. It smells amazing, she said, her eyes sparkling with joy as she watched her husband indulge in his passion once again. Noah looked up, his face beaming. I think I've made something special, Angie. Would you like to try it? As Karenza tasted the dish, her eyes widened. Oh, Noah, she sighed, this is amazing. Her reaction filled Noah with a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. He realized how much he missed this feeling, the satisfaction of creating a truly delicious dish, of sharing his art with others. In the days that followed, Noah continued to practice and perfect his dishes. He woke up early, jotting down ideas that came to him in his dreams. During his shifts at the diner, he scribbled notes on napkins, eager to try new flavor combinations when he got home. With each passing day, Noah felt his confidence grow. The doubts that had haunted him since losing his job at El Grand Epicurean began to fade, replaced by a new sense of purpose. As he stood in the kitchen, putting the finishing touches on his dishes, Noah realized something profound. Cooking wasn't just his job, it was part of who he was. No matter where life takes him, this passion will always be there, waiting to be rekindled. The day of the charity cooking competition finally arrived. Noah woke up early, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He carefully packed his ingredients and tools, double-checking everything before setting off. As he entered the bustling community center, Noah was struck by the energy in the space. The room was filled with the sounds of frying pans, slicing knives, and excited chatter. Participants from all walks of life were preparing their kitchens, each hoping to impress the judges and the crowd. Noah took a deep breath and began to organize his kitchen. He carefully arranged the ingredients, his hands moving with the mastery of a seasoned chef. As he worked, a sense of peace washed over him. This was where he belonged. The competition began and Noah fell into the rhythm of cooking. He moved with grace and confidence, his creativity shining through in every dish he prepared. The aromas from his kitchen drew curious glances, and onlookers watched in amazement as he skillfully combined flavors in unexpected ways. As the judges walked through the kitchens, Noah proudly presented his dishes. He explained the inspiration behind each creation, sharing stories about his grandmother's cooking and his own culinary journey. The judges listened intently, their eyes widening as they tasted his food. This is amazing, one judge exclaimed, unable to hide his enthusiasm. The flavors were classic yet perfectly balanced, unlike anything I'd ever tasted before. The crowd around Noah's kitchen grew as word spread of his extraordinary dishes. People eagerly waited to try the dishes, chatting excitedly about this talented chef. the smiling faces they had discovered. Noah felt a warmth spread in his chest as he looked out at the sea of smiling faces. For the first time in months, he felt truly seen and appreciated for his talents. The pain and doubt that had haunted him since losing his job at El Grand Epicurean began to fade, replaced by a new sense of purpose and hope. As the event drew to a close, Noah found himself surrounded by well-wishers and new fans. People complimented him on his creativity, asked for recipes, and asked where they could try more of his dishes. The positive reception overwhelmed Noah, filling him with gratitude and joy. As the crowd began to disperse, Noah noticed a well-dressed woman approaching his kitchen. Her sharp eyes scanned the remains of the dishes, and a smile appeared on her lips. Noah immediately recognized her as Evelyn Wright, one of the city's most respected food critics. "Mr. Hayes," Evelyn said, extending her hand, "I must say your dishes today were truly outstanding." Noah's heart skipped a beat as he shook her hand. "Thank you, Mrs. Wright. I'm honored that you liked them." Evelyn's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Liked is an understatement. Your flavors tell a story, Mr. Hayes, a story of passion, legacy, and resilience." Noah felt a lump form in his throat. He hadn't expected someone to understand his work so well. "I've heard about your recent struggles," Evelyn continued, her voice softening. "It's a shame when talent like yours is suppressed by prejudice and narrow-mindedness." Noah nodded, unable to speak. The memory of being fired from El Grand Epicurean still hurt, but today, Evelyn said, her voice brightening, "I saw a chef who refused to be defeated by failure. Your creativity and skill deserve to be showcased properly, Mr. Hayes." She paused, studying Noah's face. "Have you ever thought about opening your own restaurant?" Noah's eyes widened. "It's been my dream for a long time, but there's no but," Evelyn interrupted gently. "I believe in your talent, Mr. Hayes, and I want to help make it happen." Noah felt like the ground beneath his feet was shaking. You want to help me open a restaurant?" Evelyn nodded, her smile growing brighter. "I have connections in the industry and I'm always looking for new talent to support. Your food, your story, they deserve to be shared with the world." Tears welled up in Noah's eyes as he felt the weight of Evelyn's offer. This wasn't just a chance for a new job, but a chance to prove himself, to share his passion in his own way. "Mrs. Wright, I don't know what to say," Noah stammered, overwhelmed by emotion. Evelyn placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Say yes, Mr. Hayes. Let's create something beautiful together." Noah's hand shook as he unlocked the door to his apartment. His mind was racing, replaying every word of his conversation with Evelyn Wright. As she entered the house, Carenza looked up from her book, her eyes widening at the sight of her husband's flushed face. "Noah, what's going on?" she asked, setting the book aside. Noah took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. "Carenza, you won't believe it. Evelyn Wright went to the cooking competition." Carenza's eyebrows rose. "The food critic. What did she say?" She wants to help me open my own restaurant," Noah said, his voice barely a whisper. Carenza stared for a moment. The room fell silent. Then she jumped out of her seat and hugged Noah, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Oh, Noah, that's amazing," she exclaimed, her voice catching in his chest. As they hugged, Noah felt the weight of the past few months begin to melt away. He pulled back a little, looking into Carenza's eyes, seeing everything they'd dreamed of, but also something terrifying. "What if I'm not ready?" Carenza cupped his face in her hands, her eyes filled with love and determination. "Noah Hayes, you've been ready for a long time. This is your moment." Over the next few days, Noah and Carenza spent every spare moment planning. They sat at their small kitchen table, surrounded by notebooks full of ideas, sketching out potential restaurant layouts and lists of possible menu items. "How about roots and wings?" Carenza suggested one evening, tapping his chin with a pen. "It represents your connection to your heritage and your ability to reach new heights." Noah's face lit up. "That's right, Carenza. That's exactly what I want my restaurant to represent." As they continued to work, Noah felt a new sense of purpose rise up. The pain of being fired from El Grand Epicurean faded, replaced by excitement for the future. With Carenza by his side and Evelyn's support, he felt invincible. "You know," Noah said softly one night as they were getting ready for bed, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm almost grateful for what happened to Mr. Huxley. If I hadn't been fired, I probably never would have had this opportunity." Carenza smiled, squeezing his hand. "You've always had talent, Noah. Now the world will finally see it." Evelyn Wright's reputation in the culinary world opened doors Noah had only dreamed of. She arranged a meeting with potential investors in a swanky downtown office, and Noah found himself standing before a group of well-dressed businessmen, his hands shaking as he clutched his business plan. "Ladies and gentlemen," Evelyn began, her voice confident and warm, "I would like to introduce you to Noah Hayes, a chef of extraordinary talent and vision. Noah took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice growing stronger with each word. He shared his journey, his passion for cooking, and his dream of opening a restaurant that would honor his roots while pushing the boundaries of cuisine. As he spoke, Noah could see the interest in the investors' eyes. One of them, a silver-haired woman with gentle eyes, leaned forward. "Mr. Hayes, your passion is clear. Tell us more about your idea." Noah's face lit up as he explained his vision for Roots and Wings. "It's a fusion of traditional soul food and modern techniques," he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I want to create dishes that remind people of home, while also surprising them with new flavors." The investors nodded approvingly, and when the meeting ended, they agreed to provide the funding Noah needed. As they left the office, Evelyn squeezed Noah's shoulder. "You did it, Noah. Your dream is coming true." Over the next few weeks, Noah threw himself into planning. He spent hours in his small kitchen at home, testing recipes and jotting down ideas. Carenza would often find him there late at night, surrounded by pots and pans, a look of intense concentration on his face. "Try this," he said one evening, handing her a spoonful of the rich, flavorful soup. "This is my grandmother's recipe, but I added a little twist." Carenza's eyes widened as she tasted it. "Noah, this is amazing." Noah smiled, his chest swelling with pride. He knew he was on the right track. Every dish he created was a part of his story, a blend of his past and his hopes for the future. As the idea for Roots and Wings began to take shape, Noah felt a deep sense of gratitude. He thought about all the people who had supported him: Carenza, Evelyn, the investors who believed in him. Their belief in his abilities gave him the courage to spread his wings and fly high. As Noah's plans for Roots and Wings gradually took shape, news of his return spread through the city's culinary world. The news spread quickly, reaching his colleagues and former customers from El Gran Epicurean. Many were surprised and delighted to learn that Noah was making a triumphant return to the culinary scene. One sunny afternoon, as Noah was looking at potential locations for his new restaurant, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Sophie, a sauce chef he had worked closely with at El Gran Epicurean. "Noah, I just heard about your new restaurant. I'm so happy for you. You deserve your chance to shine." Noah felt a warmth spread through his chest as he read the message. He hadn't realized how much he missed the camaraderie of his old kitchen team. Throughout the day, other messages from his former colleagues poured in, from sous chefs, servers, even the pastry chef, who admired Noah's creativity. Later that week, while Noah was shopping for ingredients to experiment with new recipes, he ran into Mr. and Mrs. Goldstein, regulars at El Gran Epicurean, who always complimented his food. "Noah, my boy," Mrs. Goldstein exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. "We've missed your wonderful food. Is it true that you're opening your own restaurant?" Noah nodded, a shy smile spreading across his face. "Yes, Mom, it's called Roots and Wings. I hope to open in a few months." Mr. Goldstein patted him on the back warmly. "We'll be first in line, son. Your food always has soul. It'll be great to eat it again." The Goldsteins' words echoed in Noah's mind long after they parted ways. Their enthusiasm and the support of his former colleagues gave him a new sense of purpose. He realized that, despite the challenges he had faced, he had left a lasting impression on people through his food. As Noah continued to work on his restaurant plans, he received an unexpected email from Jean-Luc, head sommelier at El Gran Epicurean. Jean-Luc offered to help Noah curate the perfect wine list to pair with the unique Roots and Wings menu. As the construction of Roots and Wings began, Noah found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Each day brought new decisions to make and challenges to overcome. But for Noah, each obstacle was just another opportunity to pour his heart and soul into his dream. From early morning until late at night, Noah was on site, overseeing every detail of the restaurant's creation. He worked closely with the architects and designers, ensuring that the space would reflect the warmth and creativity of his cuisine. "I want the dining room to feel like home," Noah explained to the interior designer, his eyes lighting up with excitement but also like an adventure. "Can we incorporate warm wood tones with bright colors?" The designer nodded, taking notes as Noah described his vision. Together, they chose rich mahogany tables and vibrant African-inspired artwork for the walls, creating a space that was both welcoming and inspiring. In the kitchen, Noah was even more involved. He meticulously selected every piece of equipment, from the state-of-the-art ovens to the handcrafted knives. Every tool had to meet his exacting standards. "This isn't just about cooking," Noah told Carenza one evening as they reviewed plans for the kitchen. "It's about creating an experience. Every dish that leaves this kitchen will carry a piece of my story with it." But realizing his vision wasn't easy. Construction delays threatened to push back the opening date, and unexpected costs began to eat into their budget. Noah spent many late nights reviewing spreadsheets and making tough decisions. One particularly stressful day, as Noah wrestled with a batch of defective kitchen tiles, he felt the weight of the dream weighing down on him. Doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps he had bitten off too much. Just then, his phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn Wright, the food critic who had believed in him from the start. "How's it going, chef? I can't wait to see what you're cooking up." Those simple words of encouragement were enough to rekindle Noah's resolve. He squared his shoulders and threw himself into his work, facing each challenge with renewed energy. As the weeks passed, Noah's dedication began to pay off. The restaurant slowly took shape, transforming from a construction site into a warm and welcoming space, perfect for showcasing Noah's culinary vision. As the grand opening of Roots and Wings approached, excitement spread throughout the city's culinary community. Word of Noah's new venture spread, and foodies eagerly awaited the flavors and experiences he would bring. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, El Gran Epicurean was facing a completely different kind of attention. The once bustling restaurant was now eerily quiet most nights. Mr. Huxley paced the kitchen, his face etched with concern as he looked out at the empty dining room. "Where are our regulars?" he muttered to the sauce chef, who shrugged in response. The absence of Noah's creative dishes had left a distinct void on the menu. Customers who had once praised the unique flavor combinations now complained of bland, uninspired dishes. Mr. Huxley's insistence on traditional recipes had failed to satisfy the increasingly diverse palates of his customers. But it wasn't just the food that had driven customers away. The atmosphere in the restaurant had changed dramatically since Noah left. The warmth and camaraderie that once pervaded the kitchen had been replaced by a tense, oppressive environment. The staff worked in silence, afraid to offer new ideas or speak up for fear of facing Mr. Huxley's wrath. This negative energy spilled over into the dining room, where customers could sense the discord. The once attentive service became less enthusiastic, and the overall dining experience suffered. As the weeks passed, the financial pressure on El Gran Epicurean became impossible to ignore. Mr. Huxley found himself staring at spreadsheets filled with red numbers, his hands shaking as he realized the gravity of the situation. "We can't go on like this," he admitted, the weight of past actions finally sinking in. Regulars who had been coming to the restaurant for years began to seek new dining experiences elsewhere. Food critics who had once heaped praise on El Gran Epicurean now wrote scathing reviews, further damaging the restaurant's reputation. Mr. Huxley's pride prevented him from acknowledging the root causes of the decline. He blamed the economy, changing culinary trends, and even his own staff for the restaurant's struggles. But deep in his mind, a voice still reminded him of the talented chef he had chased away. The grand opening night finally arrived, and Roots and Wings was filled with excitement. The restaurant's warm and welcoming space welcomed a steady stream of customers. Noah stood in the kitchen, his heart pounding with excitement and joy as the first dishes left the kitchen. The dining room was filled with excited cries. Noah's fusion of traditional flavors and modern techniques had conquered the taste buds of every diner. The community came out in full support, and the restaurant was packed. Carenza, glowing with pride, moved between tables, chatting with customers and basking in her husband's success. She caught Noah's eye through the kitchen window and gave him a thumbs up, her smile beaming. In the kitchen, Noah worked with renewed energy, his passion evident in every dish he prepared. His team, inspired by Noah's leadership and creativity, moved in perfect harmony. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and camaraderie, a stark contrast to the tense environment of El Gran Epicurean. As the evening continued, food critics and local celebrities arrived, drawn by the attention surrounding the new restaurant. Noah worked with a new energy, finding his passion evident in every dish he prepared for his team. Inspired by Noah's leadership and creativity, his team working in perfect harmony around him. The atmosphere was energetic, filled with laughter and friendliness, a stark contrast to the tense environment at El Gran Epicurean. As the evening continued, food critics and local celebrities arrived one by one, drawn by the attention surrounding the new restaurant. They sampled Noah's signature dishes, their eyes widening with each bite. Conversations about the creative menu and Noah's inspiring journey filled the air. Across town, Mr. Huxley sat alone in his office at El Gran Epicurean, scrolling through social media. His face fell as he saw post after post praising Roots and Wings and its talented chef. Photos of smiling customers and mouth-watering dishes filled his feed. The realization of what he had lost hit Mr. Huxley like a physical blow. He thought about the empty tables in his restaurant, the dwindling reservations, the mounting bills. The consequences of his actions were becoming painfully clear. Back at Roots and Wings, Noah stepped out of the kitchen to address the crowd. The room fell silent as he began to speak, his voice filled with emotion. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he said, his eyes sparkling. "This restaurant is a dream come true, and it wouldn't be possible without your support. As the weeks turned into months, Roots and Wings continued to thrive. The restaurant became a culinary hotspot, drawing foodies from across the city and beyond. Noah's creative dishes and warm hospitality kept customers coming back time and time again. Meanwhile, across town, El Grand Epicurean was a shadow of its former self. Empty tables and a small staff greeted Mr. Huxley each day as he arrived for work. The once bustling kitchen was now quiet, a stark reminder of his poor decisions. One evening, as Mr. Huxley sat alone in his office, staring at the mounting bills and dwindling bank statements, the reality of his situation suddenly hit him. Tears welled up in his eyes as he realized he was on the brink of losing everything. His pride and prejudice had cost him not only his best chef, but his entire business. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm him, there was a knock on the door. Mr. Huxley looked up, hastily wiping his eyes, and saw Noah standing in the doorway. Surprise and shame filled Mr. Huxley's face. "Noah, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Noah entered the office, his expression determined and compassionate. "Mr. Huxley, I've heard about the restaurant's troubles. I have a proposition for you." Mr. Huxley's eyebrows rose in curiosity and disbelief. After all that had happened, after all the pain he had caused, here stood Noah, offering to help. Noah took a deep breath and continued. "I know we've had our disagreements, but I believe in second chances. I propose to buy El Grand Epicurean and merge it into Roots and Wings. You will continue to be an advisor, sharing your expertise and helping to combine the best of both restaurants." Mr. Huxley sat silently, overwhelmed by Noah's unexpected kindness and generosity. The offer was a lifeline he never thought he would receive, especially from someone he had treated so poorly. Mr. Huxley stared at Noah, his eyes wide with disbelief. The man he had despised and treated so unfairly was now standing before him, offering him a way out. It was almost too much to bear. I don't understand, Mr. Huxley stammered, his voice choked with emotion. "After all I've done to you, why would you want to help me?" Noah smiled softly, his eyes filled with compassion. "Because holding on to anger only hurts us both. I've learned that forgiveness can be a very powerful thing." He stepped closer to Mr. Huxley's desk, his demeanor calm and confident. "The Grand Epicurean has a rich history and great potential. It would be a shame if it were to close forever. I believe that, together, we can breathe new life into it." Mr. Huxley's shoulders slumped as he let out a long sigh. "Perfect." Mr. Huxley felt a wave of surprise wash over him at Noah's words. "But the restaurant is failing. It's beyond saving," he sighed, his voice heavy. Noah shook his head, his voice filled with determination. "No restaurant is beyond saving if you have the right people and the right vision. I see an opportunity here to combine the classic techniques that made El Grand Epicurean famous with the innovative approach we've developed at Roots and Wings." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I'd like to buy out your stake in the restaurant, Mr. Huxley, but I'd like you to stay on as an advisor. Your experience and knowledge are invaluable." Mr. Huxley's eyes widened at the offer. It was more than he could ever hope for, and far more than he thought he deserved. A lump formed in his throat as he struggled to find the words to respond. "Noah, I don't know what to say," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "Your offer is truly generous, especially after everything that has happened between us." Noah nodded, understanding the gravity of the moment. "I know this is a big deal. Take some time to think about it, but know that this offer comes from a place of respect for what El Grand Epicurean was and what it can become." Mr. Huxley looked down at his hands, then back at Noah. In that moment, he saw not only a talented chef, but a man of incredible dignity and compassion. Humbled and filled with gratitude, Mr. Huxley made his decision. "I accept your offer, Noah," he said, his voice filled with relief and gratitude. "Thank you for giving me and El Grand Epicurean a second chance." When the sale was complete, Noah and Mr. Huxley stood in the kitchen of El Grand Epicurean. The once bustling space was now quiet, a stark reminder of how far the restaurant had fallen. Noah took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the familiar corners. "Mr. Huxley," Noah began, his voice calm and steady, "I have a proposal for you." Mr. Huxley looked up, curious and a little worried. "Yes," Noah smiled gently. "I would like to offer you the position of head chef here at El Grand Epicurean." Mr. Huxley's eyes widened in surprise. "Head chef? But I think—" After all, Noah raised his hand, interrupting gently. "The past is behind us. What matters now is the future of this restaurant. Your experience and skills are invaluable, and I believe you can play a vital role in reviving it." He paused, his expression becoming more serious. "But I want to be clear, this restaurant will be run differently from now on. We will focus on inclusion, respect, and creating a healthy work environment for everyone." Mr. Huxley nodded slowly, absorbing Noah's words. That means there will be no room for bias or prejudice here, Noah continued. Every member of our team, no matter their background, will be valued and given an equal opportunity to shine. Can you promise that? Mr. Huxley was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the shiny counters. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. Noah, I don't deserve this kindness, but if you're willing to give me this chance, I promise to do everything I can to make things right. Noah held out his hand. Well then, welcome back, Chef Huxley. Let's create something great together. Over the next few days, Mr. Huxley began to come to terms with his new role at El Grand Epicurean. The idea of working under Noah, someone he had treated poorly, filled him with a mixture of shame and discomfort. He couldn't help but feel a little resentful whenever Noah gave instructions or suggested changes to the menu. One busy evening, as the kitchen was in full swing, Mr. Huxley watched Noah manage the team with ease, his calm demeanor and encouraging words bringing out the best in everyone. This was in stark contrast to his own rigid and autocratic leadership style. Chef Huxley, Noah called out, could you help Samantha with the sauce for Table S? She's having a bit of trouble with it working together more harmoniously and cohesively than ever before. Mr. Huxley hesitated for a moment, then nodded and walked over to Samantha's station. As he guided her through each step, he suddenly realized that he was actually enjoying the interaction. The young chef's eyes lit up with understanding and her grateful smile said it all. Thank you, Chef, Samantha said warmly. I really appreciate your help, Mr. Huxley felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a kitchen in a long time. He glanced at Noah, who nodded approvingly. As the weeks passed, Mr. Huxley began to notice changes in himself. He found himself looking forward to coming to work each day, eager to collaborate with the diverse team Noah had assembled. The kitchen was filled with laughter and camaraderie, a far cry from the tense atmosphere he had previously created. One day, as they were planning the menu for an upcoming event, Noah turned to Mr. Huxley and asked, what do you think about incorporating some fusion cuisine? I was thinking we could blend traditional French techniques with flavors from different cuisines. In the past, Mr. Huxley might have laughed at the idea, but now he was intrigued. That sounds interesting, he said, surprised. Maybe we could start with a variation on coq au vin using some Asian spices. Noah smiled brightly at him, and Mr. Huxley felt a pride he hadn't felt in a long time. He realized that under Noah's leadership, he was rediscovering his passion for cooking and learning to appreciate new perspectives. As they created the new menu together, Mr. Huxley gradually embraced the restaurant's new philosophy. He began to see the power of diversity, the beauty of collaboration, and the joy of nurturing young talent. As the weeks turned into months, Noah and Mr. Huxley worked together to breathe new life into El Grand Epicurean. The process was slow, but their shared dedication began to pay off. One sunny afternoon, they sat at a corner table surrounded by menu sketches and drafts. Noah looked up from his notes, his eyes sparkling. What if we added a seasonal section? He suggested. It could highlight local ingredients and keep the menu fresh. Mr. Huxley nodded, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. It's a great idea. We can rotate the dishes every month, giving regulars something new to look forward to. As they discussed the menu changes, Noah noticed a change in Mr. Huxley's demeanor. The veteran chef's face had softened and his voice was filled with a new enthusiasm. This was a stark contrast to the rigid and uncompromising man he had once been. The restaurant staff began to notice the change as well. The kitchen, once a place of tension and fear, was now filled with positive energy. Chefs from many different cultures brought their unique perspectives, creating a unique flavor combination that set El Grand Epicurean apart from other restaurants in the city. One evening, as dinner service was coming to a close, Noah gathered the staff together for a meeting. I want to thank you all for your hard work, he said, his voice full of warmth. We've come a long way, and it's thanks to your dedication and creativity. Mr. Huxley stepped forward, clearing his throat. I wanted to say something, he said, his voice unusually hesitant. I know I haven't been the easiest person to work with in the past, but thanks to Noah's leadership and your patience, I've learned a lot. Thank you for giving me a second chance. The room fell silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Noah looked at Mr. Huxley with a small smile on his face. As news of the changes at El Grand Epicurean spread, curious diners began to return. They were greeted by a warm, welcoming space and a menu full of surprises and delights. The restaurant's reputation began to grow, not only for its food, but also for its innovative and inclusive approach to fine dining. As the weeks passed, the staff at El Grand Epicurean began to notice subtle changes and more. Mr. Huxley nodded, agreeing with Noah's words. We've come a long way since we started, and I can't imagine doing this without your support, he said, his voice warm and sincere. The change in Mr. Huxley's behavior did not go unnoticed by the staff at El Grand Epicurean. The once stern and unapproachable head chef began to soften. His sharp commands gradually turned into patient instructions, and his harsh glares were now replaced with encouraging nods. One day during a busy lunch hour, Aisha, Youngsi's chef, accidentally dropped a tray of appetizers. She stood still, afraid that Mr. Huxley would reprimand her harshly as usual. Instead, he calmly walked over and said, "It's okay, Aisha. Things like this happen. Let's clean up and start over." The kitchen fell silent, everyone surprised by Mr. Huxley's unexpected kindness. Aisha's eyes filled with tears of gratitude as she helped Mr. Huxley clean up the mess. As Mr. Huxley's transformation continued, the staff began to feel more comfortable in his presence. They began to share their ideas more openly, knowing that their opinions would be valued rather than ignored. The atmosphere in the kitchen shifted from tense and competitive to collaborative and supportive. At a staff meeting, Mr. Huxley surprised everyone by asking for feedback on his management style. "I know I haven't been easy to work with in the past," he admitted, his voice full of regret, "but I'm committed to improving. Please tell me how I can do better." The room was quiet at first, but gradually the staff began to open up. They shared their experiences and made suggestions, and Mr. Huxley listened attentively, taking notes and asking thoughtful questions. As Mr. Huxley's preconceptions faded, diversity in the kitchen grew. Chefs from many different cultures felt empowered to bring their unique culinary perspectives. The menu gradually evolved, incorporating a variety of flavors and techniques that reflected the rich tapestry of the staff's experiences. Positive changes in the work environment became apparent. Laughter regularly echoed through the kitchen, and staff began to socialize outside of work hours. They held potluck meals, where each person brought a dish representing their heritage, creating a deeper understanding and appreciation for each other's cultures. Noah and Mr. Huxley sat in the quiet office of El Grand Epicurean, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows creating a warm glow. The hum of the kitchen had died down as the last employees left after a successful day's work. Noah leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful look on his face. "You know, Mr. Huxley, I never imagined we'd be sitting here like this," he said, his voice soft and thoughtful. Mr. Huxley nodded, a small smile appearing on his usually stern face. "Me too, Noah. I've learned more in the last few months than I have in my entire career." Noah watched him closely, taking in the changes in his demeanor. The coldness and condescension that had once defined him were gone, replaced by a man who seemed more at peace with himself and others. "I've seen incredible growth in him," Noah said, his voice filled with warmth and encouragement. The way he embraced change, the way he started really listening to his employees, it was incredible to witness. Mr. Huxley's eyes met Noah's, filled with gratitude and regret. "I owe you an apology, Noah. The way I treated you before was unacceptable. I was blinded by my own prejudice and fear." Noah nodded, acknowledging the apology. "We all make mistakes, Mr. Huxley. What matters is how we learn from them. I believe in second chances, and you have proven yourself worthy." As there was a comfortable silence between them as they both reflected on their journeys. Mr. Huxley was the first to break the silence, his voice choked with emotion. "Your generosity in giving me this position has taught me a lot about leadership and humility." Noah smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "That's what collaboration is all about, right? Learning from each other, growing together. We may have started as adversaries, but I think we found something much bigger: sincerity. But I've learned that forgiveness and second chances can bring much better things." As Noah continued to share his story, his passion and perseverance shone through. He told of his journey from being an unfairly fired chef to becoming a successful restaurateur, and how he and Mr. Huxley overcame the hardships together to rebuild El Grand Epicurean. The interview ended with applause from the production team, and Noah was relieved that it was over. When he returned home, Carenza greeted him with a beaming smile. "You did a great job," she said, proud of her husband. "Your story is going to inspire a lot of people." Noah's appearance on the TV show created a wave of positivity. The restaurant's phones began ringing off the hook with reservations from people wanting to experience his unique dishes and hear his inspiring story. Customers came from all over, not only to enjoy the innovative menu, but also to witness the rebirth of El Grand Epicurean. Under the joint leadership of Noah and Mr. Huxley, the restaurant grew from strength to strength. More than just a place to eat, El Grand Epicurean became a symbol of innovation, collaboration, and community. The restaurant began hosting events celebrating diversity and inclusion in the culinary world, drawing the attention of community leaders and food enthusiasts. For Noah and Mr. Huxley, seeing their vision come to life was a priceless reward. They often stood side by side in the kitchen, working in harmony to create dishes that delighted diners. Their mutual respect was so palpable, that it laid the foundation for the entire restaurant. Noah's story, from an unfairly treated chef to a successful restaurateur, began to spread beyond the city limits. His story of perseverance, forgiveness, and triumph over adversity touched the hearts of many from all walks of life. As the news spread, local media picked up on the inspiring story of El Grand Epicurean's transformation. One sunny morning, Noah received a call from a popular television show. They wanted to feature him in a segment about local success stories. Noah was initially nervous about the idea of appearing on television, but Carenza encouraged him to share his story. The day of the interview arrived and Noah found himself sitting under the bright lights of a studio. As the cameras rolled, he spoke from the heart about his experiences. He talked about the pain of discrimination, the struggle to find work, and the unexpected opportunity that changed everything. But most importantly, he emphasized the power of forgiveness and second chances, and instead, I chose to forgive and move forward. And that decision opened doors I never imagined. The segment aired, and the response from viewers was overwhelming. Noah's phone began ringing off the hook with messages of support and admiration. People from all over the country reached out to share how his story had touched them. Soon, the invitations started pouring in. Local business associations invited Noah to speak at their events, culinary schools wanted him to share with students, and even some national conferences expressed interest in having him as a keynote speaker. At first, Noah was overwhelmed by the attention. He was just a chef who loved to cook, not a public speaker. But as he began accepting these invitations, he realized how much impact his words could have. At each event, Noah shared his experiences with honesty and humility. He spoke about the importance of perseverance in the face of adversity, the value of staying passionate, and the transformative power of forgiveness. His words touched a chord, often leaving no one in the room holding back their emotions. As Noah stood in the kitchen of his first restaurant, surrounded by the bustling energy of his team preparing for a busy evening, he took a moment to reflect on the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. The shiny surfaces and state-of-the-art equipment were a world away from the small diner where he had worked, struggling to make ends meet. He looked out the window, saw El Grand Epicurean across the street, the once struggling restaurant that had now thrived under his and Mr. Huxley's shared leadership. It stood as a testament to the power of forgiveness and second chances. Noah felt a gentle touch on his shoulder and turned to find Carenza smiling at him. "Mindfulness again?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with understanding. He nodded, pulling her into a warm hug. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," he said quietly. "I never could have imagined this when I got fired from El Grand Epicurean." As if on cue, Mr. Huxley entered the kitchen, his chef's uniform crisp and white. The two men exchanged respectful nods, past disagreements long since resolved. "We're fully booked tonight," Mr. Huxley announced, excitement twinkling in his voice. "And the Times food critic is here." Noah smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him for the community that had stood by him in his darkest hours. He thinks of the charity cook-off that reignited his passion, the food critic who believed in him, and the countless people who supported his dream along the way. As he prepares to begin serving the evening, Noah looks around at the diverse faces of his staff, a reflection of the inclusive environment he has worked so hard to create. He realizes that his restaurants are not only successful businesses, but also beacons of hope, showing that kindness and integrity can triumph over bias and adversity. With a deep sense of fulfillment, Noah grabs his kitchen knife and begins to cook, filled with gratitude for the journey that has brought him here. Would you forgive Mr. Huxley if you were in Noah's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I am spending hours writing these heartwarming stories for you, and your support is what keeps me going.